This one's an interesting, Michael. I couldn't believe this is how we were actually thinking about putting this out here. But Square Enix was originally going to release episodic DLC stories for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but decided against it. David Carcassoli over at PSU. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director Naoki Hamaguchi revealed that Rebirth was originally going to have episodic DLC stories following its launch, though the development team decided against making them in the end. Revealed in an interview with Epic Games as part of the Rebirth finally making its way to PC in the Epic Games Store, Hamaguchi said that the DLC would have been ready alongside the PC version. Quote, "We did have the desire to add an episodic story as a new DLC to the PC version," end quote, said Hamaguchi, but in the interview reveals that the choice to not do the DLC came from reality of limited resources and prioritizing the completion of the third and final chapter to this remake saga. Quote, "However," end quote, Hamaguchi added, quote, "if we receive strong requests from players after the release regarding certain matters, we would like to consider them," end quote. While players would certainly not object to DLC, the conclusion of this remake project is what fans really want to get to. Not for it to be over, so that fans can finally see what the conclusion is after waiting more than half a decade for it, and that's not including the time spent waiting for the first game to release. Michael, interesting, that was almost the opportunity to bring in DLC to the game, and then they turn it down, but it makes also a lot of sense. Limited resources, let's wrap up the third and final game.
Yeah, and I bet you this was a learning experience, right? Because the first one, I believe, did have episodic DLC, and I wonder if they made that and then realized, like, oh, that kind of hurt Rebirth's timeline, right? And so now all of a sudden they're looking at it and like, well, we could do the same thing, but we realize at the end of the day, fans, while they would, again, probably would love DLC, fans, as I said, want to see the end of the sequel. So I'm gonna think that Square Enix did kind of finally learn, be like, all right, look, we could do DLC, but we just want to get this done with, right? We want to make sure everybody's happy. We want to sure this game is out, and because I mean, Remake I think was the first one, right? Absolutely killed it.
Yep.
Rebirth, fantastic game as well. I'm curious what synonym for re-release we're going to get for the third one in the title as well, right? But I think this has been a fantastic story. If you're a Final Fantasy person, I'm not a big Final Fantasy guy, but I've had friends who are. They absolutely love this. They said they cannot wait for the third one. So big props to Square Enix for not milking their customers and saying, look, we know you want the third game. We're going to work on it. And oh, by the way, here it is on PC as well. Absolutely love that. Gives me the reason to check it out, right? The big reason I'm not a Final Fantasy guy, Drew, I don't own a PlayStation. Hard to play these games, so I'm glad Square Enix is putting them on PC. But I think this is a smart choice at the end of the day. Give fans what they want, not just mini DLC.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? Yeah, let's wrap it up, I think is the biggest thing, right? Let's get the conclusion out there. Everybody can be happy, hopefully, in the idea, if they keep the trajectory of where they're going with one and then the middle portion, and then now the third end of it all, wrap it up. People have been just blown away with the remake. Not me. I'm just not that hardcore Final Fantasy fan. I fell more in love with the 16, which is just a whole different spin-off from 7, which I can appreciate where the birth of all Final Fantasy games came from. But at the end of the day, man, it was just a lot of cheese in there, and I just couldn't get past it. It was a huge struggle for me to get past it. But the game is solid, right? I know where everybody's head's at, and I can appreciate where it is. When do we get the other one? That's the biggest question, right? How much longer do fans have to wait? A couple more years? Let's just wrap it up, get it out there, and make everybody happy.